Alrighty, so today is another day of Aristotle's Musings, and today we're going to be talking about redefining success, focusing on the process, and staying energized. Which staying energized may seem like a little bit of a weird topic, but I think it's critically important. And some years it's more challenging than others. But 2023, for instance, it's extremely important. Honestly, probably 2024 is going to be a lot of the same. So I think it's really, really important. And I want to talk about a couple different strategies, honestly, basically three different ways to stay energized, stay in the now, stay energized, focus on right now, because it's very easy to kind of get enamored. I'm talking to myself here because I do this all the time. It's very easy to get enamored with the future. It's very hard to stay focused on the now. And that's really what I want to talk about. So, all of these Aristotle's musings are really focused around the idea of in technical sales and mortgage origination, real estate agent. It's all a technical position, right? And if you don't think it is, I promise you it is. It's just that we take it for granted, the technical aspect of it all. So really, all of these are really built around technical sales for anybody in general. But in sales, and this is the sales position, right? But on the sales side, we tend to look at things kind of in terms of seasons, right? January through March, you're doing a lot of planting. Just like a farmer, you're doing a lot of planting. April through June, you're starting to grow those leads, start to grow those referral partners, and then hopefully summer, fall, July through September-ish, you're focusing on harvesting, actually closing transactions. Or if you're really a farmer, literally harvesting the crops, right? And then during the winter, you're starting to recover a little bit. Can I get away? Can I break a little bit for the holidays? Can I get a little bit of R&R, right? And we tend to look at it the exact same way. Now, in our jobs, it's not like we could break it up exactly that way. We're going to be doing some harvesting in the springtime and some harvesting in the winter. But in a perfect year, yeah, it's very much January happens and everybody sets a New Year's resolution of, hey, I want to go buy a house. And that's when they start to get pre-approved. That's when they start to reach out. That's when they start to get their ducks in a row, right? And then during the late spring, very, very early summer, maybe they're starting to actually get their feet wet and start to look at homes. And then it's, again, not coincidental, but during this heat of the summer, Memorial Day to Labor Day is when people are actually buying homes and closing on transactions. That's when the kids are out of school. That's when people want to move. That's when the brunt of the transactions get done. So we tend to break the year up kind of that way. We tend to break our months up that way as well. But there's a problem. There's a problem with all this. So not only must be doing this every single year, but you have to be doing this every single quarter, every single month, and you also have to be doing it every single week as well. So you really have to, again, aim small, miss small. You can't just focus on production. You have to focus on the bigger picture, and you have to focus on doing this all regularly. Some years are going to be more planting and growing. 2022, 2023, probably 2024. Going to be a lot of planting and growing, right? There's not going to be as many deals to be had, most likely. Unlike 2020, 2021, where everybody was buying a house. Everybody got sick of their house pre-pandemic. They started to use their house as a gym, as a school, as an office. Oh, and yeah, so they all started to decide to go and move kind of simultaneously. So everybody's living right now in their COVID house. We all made moves during the pandemic, it seems like. And that was because of the circumstances that we were given. So 2020, 2021, a lot of harvesting. You almost didn't have to go out and really look for the business. It was just kind of coming to you. Not the case right now. So we think of terms of success in terms of how much are we harvesting? How much am I harvesting? How much am I closing? How many deals did I close this month? What's the volume did I close? How many real estate transactions did you close this month? We focus on harvesting, and that is a big, big, big problem. We need to stop thinking that way. Like I said, aim small, miss small. Well, guess what? If you're aiming for production, you're no longer aiming small and missing small. Aiming small and missing small is aiming for the process. Looking at your process, getting really genuinely excited about how best to do what you do. Okay. So we think of production, we think of success in terms of harvesting. How much am I actually closing this month, this year? We need to change the way that we're thinking. It really involves a mindset change. We need to redefine success. We need to redefine success by aiming small and missing small. It's kind of weird, but I look at like shows that like got me through different times in my life. I don't know if maybe I'm the only one that did that, but like getting through college, that was totally Scrubs. I love Scrubs. It was the show that got me through college. I will think of college in terms of what shows were I watching. I was watching Scrubs. Well, during the pandemic, Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso got me through that pandemic. I absolutely love Ted Lasso. It's the only show you're ever going to hear me like recommend on Aristotle's Musings. If you haven't watched Ted Lasso, check it out. It's totally worth paying for Apple TV for a month and just binging all the seasons. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful show. People think about sports shows and they think, oh, well, I'm not really into soccer. Good, because honestly, every good show about sports or every good movie about sports is just a backdrop for the drama that's unfolding. Remember, the Titans was not really about football, right? Miracle was not really about hockey. It was about the Cold War and overcoming obstacles and coming together with a band of brothers. Like the best sports shows out there, sports movies out there, it's really just the backdrop through which everything else plays. Same with Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is really about managing through love. That's really what it's about. So it definitely spoke to me. But if you haven't checked out Ted Lasso, highly encourage you to do so. Great show, wonderful show. If you enjoy Ted Lasso, I know that we're going to get along well together. Anyways, in Ted Lasso, and it's not really noticeable immediately, but if you watch Ted Lasso, there's a lot of what I call bibliotherapy. I actually stole that term from Al Colleen, who was an author of one of the other books, but he called it bibliotherapy. And at one point, Ted Lasso gives out a book to each one of his players. And if you watch carefully, there's books referenced throughout the entire show. He's constantly reading a book. His other assistant coach is reading books constantly. They'll drop kind of like little tidbits from books constantly. But one of the books that they mentioned, and they actually mentioned it twice, was Bird by Bird. And they didn't come out and just talk about the book. They just mentioned, hey, remember, Coach, Bird by Bird, Bird by Bird. So I made it my mission to read every book that was referenced in that show. It became my summer reading playlist, and it turns out that there were so many books referenced that it actually became a 2 summer reading list, but I finally got through them all. But Bird by Bird, he mentions it twice. I was like, that's kind of a weird term, so I looked it up, and sure enough, it's a book. Read the book. So Bird by Bird, Anne Lamott, she tells this story in this book where her and her brother were kids, and her brother was sitting at the table, the kitchen counter, and he was supposed to write this book report on all these various different books, on all these different birds. And like most kids, they learned the lesson of procrastination, and he found out the ramifications of doing so because it was like the night before this report was due, and he had not read about any of these birds. And he was supposed to write a report about a bunch of birds. So her brother is just freaking out at the kitchen table, just super anxious, just kind of wallowing in it. And their dad comes over and, kind of goes to the little kid. He's like, what's wrong? And the kid explains the situation. And he's like, hey, son, bird by bird. Just go bird by bird. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time? Just bird by bird. Let's just go bird by bird. Do not focus on the entire book report. That's a very easy way to get where you currently are. Downtrodden, wallowing in pity. We need to focus on bird by bird. Aim small, miss small. Bird by bird. Same exact thing, right? She also talks about in this book how it's a book about writing. So not recommending it unless you want to go into writing. Not recommending it necessarily. I liked it. I thought it was fun. It was a good read. But I took some things out of it, obviously. But unless you're going to get into writing, probably not necessary. So take that off your list. Didn't recommend it. Just giving you the highlights. Anyways, one other thing that she talks about is people always wonder, like, hey, how do I go about writing this book? And that's really what this book is about, is how to write. And she's like, look, do not focus on the plot. Again, that seems very counterintuitive. If you're writing a book, everybody wants to know the plot. The plot's the best part, right? She's like, no. Focus on the characters. Just focus on building out your characters. And if you can focus on building out your characters, the rest will take care of itself. The plot will reveal itself to you. Again, kind of mindset changing, right? Do not focus on trying to write the plot of your story. Focus on your characters. Focus on writing your characters. The rest will take care of itself. Any show you've ever enjoyed, you probably enjoyed because of the characters, right? Every single show, just think about your favorite shows. Characters. You think about your characters. That's what we think about, right? That is completely aim small, miss small. That is bird by bird. That is focusing on the small and minutia. One easy way to stay energized is to just focus on your process, focus on your systems, focus on taking care of what's going to generate that business instead of focusing on the business itself. If you focus on the process and the systems, the business will take care of itself. That's number one. I have a couple quotes from a couple different athletes. I really like this one from Michaela Schifrin. Miracles are not random. You are in charge of your destiny. Practice your process and the results will take care of themselves. Perfect. She was 17 when she said that. She also is currently the record holder for the most World Cup wins of any alpine skier. Pretty amazing stuff. But it's perfect. It's perfect. Miracles are not random. You are in charge of your destiny. Just focus on your process. If you do that, the rest will take care of itself. By redefining success in these small, measurable ways, you're able to stay energized. Because if you're focusing on harvesting, how many deals am I getting? You're losing the battle. If you focus on doing those activities which will eventually lead to harvesting, you're winning. So you have to focus on that. And you have to get excited. You have to get energized by that. That part is not easy. We all like to have those deals closed. We all like to focus in on that part. But if you just focus on that, you're going to end up in a world of hurt. Positivity begets positivity. Energy begets energy. Happiness begets happiness. And success begets further success. You just can't focus on it. You have to focus on the here and the now. Another quote, Rory McIlroy, golfer, age 25, he just won the British Open. I just focus on my process and I don't worry about the result. Just really get into the process. It's very easy to struggle with that. And it's easy to struggle with that because of, this will look familiar, right? The plateau of latent potential, which I talked about last time. There's the valley of disappointment, right? You start focusing on your process, you start focusing on your systems, and you're like, hey, great, I should start to see immediate results. And this is exactly what should happen. Instead, what happens is it takes a while. It takes a while. It takes a while for all that stuff to kind of work itself out, to start bearing fruit, right? You get that tree, that lemon tree. It's not going to necessarily give you fruit the first year. In fact, you honestly don't want it to. Because if it does, it's putting all its nutrients into growing fruit. It's not putting its nutrients into actually growing. And that's really what you want, is a well-groomed, a well-grown tree itself. So you got to focus on the process. You got to focus on your system. And you got to avoid staying in the valley of disappointment. It's very easy to end up there. I've known some people that have literally had their businesses collapse while they were in it. They got so worried about things not turning the corner, about things not improving, that they eventually said, I'm just going to get out of the business. I just can't do this anymore. They got lost in the valley of disappointment. It's a very dangerous place to be. So if you're not obsessive about your process, if you're not obsessive about your systems, you can fall prey to that. You can ultimately end up trapped in that valley of disappointment. Another way to kind of stay energized, and it's another story, so you are welcome. Aaronstotle story time. That's really what I should have called these. So it's what they call the Stockdale paradox. And this is a story that Jim Collins talks about in The Good to Great. So Jim Stockdale, he was an admiral during the Vietnam War. He got taken as a prisoner of war. He ended up in the Hanoi Hilton, which was the not so nice term for the prisoner of war camp that they ended up in. It was a tongue-in-cheek term for this place is really, 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 really bad. So Jim Stockdale, he was the highest ranking officer in this POW camp. And his story is very, very harrowing. But in a series of, I think it was like 5 years, he ended up getting tortured like 20 times. At one point, they were going to parade him around on TV in front of the cameras to show how well they were taking care of their prisoners of war. And so Jim took a razor blade and he started cutting his scalp so that they couldn't parade him around. They're like, oh, that's fine. We're just going to put a baseball hat on you. And he's like, okay, great. So he takes a bar stool and he literally beats himself with the stool so that he's bruised and bloodied and they can no longer parade him around. So there's a story about him creating a new version of Morse code so that the prisoners could communicate with each other. And at one point, his men were so enamored with him, so in love with him, that when things got really, really rough and they were separating all the prisoners out, he could hear people brooming the courtyard. And they were using that new version of Morse code to say, I love you, Jim. I love you, Jim. I love you, Jim. Like, pretty amazing stuff. Anyways, Jim Stockdale, when Jim Collins was writing this book, Good to Great, he wasn't looking to get anything necessarily out of Jim Stockdale. He was just more pretty much impressed by his story itself. And so he was setting up an interview, met with him, and he's like, hey, look, did any of your fellow patriots not get out? Did any of them not get out? And Jim said, yes, the optimists did not make it out. I'm like, what? What do you? That's counterintuitive. What do you mean the opposites or the optimists did not make it out? He's like, look, the optimists thought we were going to be out by December. And then December came and went. And then like, all right, we're going to be out by Easter. Easter came and went. All right, we're going to be out by the 4th of July. 4th of July came and went. And the optimists would die because of heartbreak, because of giving up, because of just that issue of not fighting for the here and now. And that's what Jim Stockdale said. And that's the Stockdale paradox that Jim Collins talks about. You both have to have belief that things are going to improve. True. You absolutely cannot survive without that. You have to have faith that things are going to get better. At the same time, you have to fight tooth and nail for today. You have to embrace the current circumstances and understand that this may not expire. This may not lapse quickly. I could be here for a long time. Faith and belief that things are going to improve, but also stay in the here and now and focus on fighting tooth and nail right now. That's the paradox piece. You have to have the belief. You also have to have the acceptance of the current conditions. If you only believe that things are going to get better and you just try to run out the clock, you're going to be an optimist. And again, the optimist did not make it out. So you have to have both of those pieces. Second tip to stay energized. Have belief that things are going to get better, but you have to focus and accept your current circumstances and focus on them right here and right now. Because we don't know how long downtimes are going to last. We don't know how long things are going to be slow for, right? We have to fight tooth and nail as though it's not going to lapse anytime soon, that it's going to be here for a while. Last thing I want to talk about. So life is on a bell curve. Life is on a bell curve. Bell curves are everywhere, right? Temperature is on a bell curve. You have January, very cold. December, very cold. Summer, everything gets warmer, obviously, right? Thanks, Aaron. You have happiness. You have a few very good days, best days. You got a few really bad days, worst days. And then most of your days, somewhere in between, right? That's happiness. You also have height. You start from nothing, you go to nothing, and in the middle, you grow. Or, as I like to think about it, baby Aaron. You're so welcome. Little baby Aaron. Chubby baby. Current day Aaron. And then what I'm hoping is old man Aaron. It's a beautiful facial hair there. I'm really, really looking forward to that someday. You know what else is on a bell curve? Comfort. It can be too cold. It can be too quiet. It can be too barren. On the other side, it can be too hot, too loud, too crowded. Life is on a bell curve. Comfort is on a bell curve. The problem is that it's very easy to get trapped in that comfort zone. So my third way of kind of staying energized is getting a little bit uncomfortable. We all have different portions of ourselves that we can tap into, right? We all have our perfect ideal situation, very comfortable, right? And then we can push ourselves a little bit. Franchises and brands, they're true to themselves. They live a lot of their life in that comfort zone, but they are constantly looking to expand that comfort zone. They are constantly looking to expand their business. They are constantly looking into how they can improve themselves. Growth exists on the margins. That's my third point. Growth exists on the margins. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You absolutely must. You cannot be comfortable if you're being challenged. You can't. You simply cannot. When you challenge yourself, you are going to be uncomfortable. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. That's okay. Growth, change, that's life, right? If you're watching this, you have some interest in it, I hope, right? That is all that life is challenge, growth, change. That's all that life is, right? So you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Every single time you get uncomfortable, kudos, congratulations. You should pat yourself on the back because it's very easy not to be, right? And every single time you've ever grown in your life, it's been uncomfortable. Your first showing appointment, your first loan application, your first closing that you went to, either one job, right? Growth is always uncomfortable. When you are growing physically, when you're physically growing, you're uncomfortable. Ooh, my knees kind of hurt today. I've got some growing pains. Yeah, that's exactly right. Growth is always uncomfortable. And again, Why is all of this important? Because we have to stay energized. So how do you stay energized? You do all three, I hope, right? Redefine success in an easy to manage way. Redefine success by focusing on bird to bird. Small, measurable activities, right? Challenge yourself. Get a bit uncomfortable. You can never be bored or complacent when you are challenging yourself. I promise you. And then again, be patient, accepting of the current conditions, and believe that things are going to get better. You have to have both the acceptance and the belief. If you only have one or the other, unfortunately, it's not going to end very well. You have to both accept today's circumstances and believe that things are going to get better. If you focus on the process, the rest will take care of itself. I hope that's helpful again. If nothing else, maybe you got one recommendation for a book or maybe two. So thank you so much. Talk to you later. Bye.